Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. I'm real excited about tonight's show. It's with Melanie Kirchdorfer. And I do have to say this, people on YouTube, of course, the audio you won't know, but the new intro was made by my son, who I often call number one son, Evan. Did a great job. And he did that. Plus, he makes all the graphics for the show, and a little shout out to him. And I never thank the person that made the music for the show enough, Kerry Lloyd Whitehouse in Ireland. He makes music for a lot of movies, some that you probably have actually watched and seen. He does a great job, and I really appreciate the music. And that's all the music that we do play on the show is all made by him. If you go to our website, podcastufo.com, you will see the latest blog by Charles Lear, and it's a Wyoming elk hunter takes a ride in a UFO. It's a real crazy story, and it was actually taken serious, I think, because it was rather outlandish, and so many things happened during that whole encounter. Like I said, it's a crazy story. You should check it out. But also the fact that this two-wheel drive truck was stuck in mud, and they didn't see any tracks leading to it and coming out of it. And even the four-wheel drives couldn't even get in where the two-wheel truck was. So it's really, really a fascinating story. That's always made into a audio blog, usually comes out about Friday. And that's here on YouTube as well. And it goes out to any place you are listening to this audio through a podcast or media player. If you support the show, I want to thank you so much. And if you'd like to support the show, all you have to do is go over to our website. The links are there. And also check out our Facebook page. It's pretty active, Twitter and all that jazz. So next week we have Larry Hancock. He wrote a book on unidentified. It's called National Intelligence Problem for UFOs. Ben Hanson's going to be coming on one of these shows coming up for 1 hour. And I don't know what segment it is. It might be kind of like a last minute thing. So he should be coming up as well. So about tonight's show, I have been talking to Melanie quite a bit. She's a wonderful lady. And it's really interesting to find out today that I've actually watched the Berkshires UFO on the on the Netflix Unsolved Mysteries more times than she has, because I've watched it every time someone is coming on the show from that. Plus, I watched it 2 times. I rarely ever watch anything more than once. And I watched it 2 times. I thought it was that good. Plus, she's also on with a few other of the people, Tom Reed, and it's called the Yes Theory. They did, and check it out on YouTube. It's like, I think it's close to a 1.5 million views, or maybe even more. Yes Theory did a great job with Melanie and Tom Reed a while ago. So check that out. But for right now, I'm going to bring in our guest, and welcome to the show, Melanie.
Hi, Martin. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being willing. And I know I've heard you say that sometimes you feel this is almost like a little bit of therapy, talking about the whole situation. So do you have a couch? Make it relax. And let's...
Actually, I'm sitting on a chair right now. Yeah, I had no intention of ever doing this. I really did not want to do it. But Tom Reed invited me to partake in doing podcasts. I wasn't going to do it. Both he and my husband said, just why don't you try it a couple of times and see how you feel? And then it became therapeutic for me to talk about it. So that's why I do it now.
Now, I would say that a huge portion of our audience has known about this story. And I have to tell you, when over the years, I had heard about this. And I say, I haven't been around that long, around the UFO world that long. I've been doing this show for almost 10 years. But in the beginning, when I was paying attention to it in different cases and things like that, I only knew it was the Reed family UFO incident. That's all I knew. I had no idea until the Berkshires UFO came out on Netflix that anyone else was involved in that. And I was kind of shocked to find that out. And there's some great witnesses that, collaborate the whole thing that was going on there. and including you, of course. And I think yours is definitely one of the most profound ones of them all. And for the person that has not heard anything about it, and still for the person that would like to hear you say it again, can you recount what happened on September 1st, 1969?
Well, the September event, I'll tell you about the September event, but it wasn't just us. It happened to a lot of different people. And we're really the only ones that have come forward to talk about it. And I was lied to about it for years and years. I was told not to talk about it. That's why it feels so good to finally be able to talk about it. But my mom finally admitted to me that it really happened, but I was told that it never did take place for many, many years.
Wow.
And then, I got this phone call that I needed to go to the Historical Society and tell them. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? You told me that never happened. It was a shooting star. I mean, it was like a whole series of events that took place, and we'll get into that later, but it was like a whole childhood thing. And then my sister and I, we worked all that weekend. Janie and I, we always had to work as children. It was just back then. I mean, you grew up in that whole era.
Yeah.
As children, you always worked. I mean, we paid board, my sister and I. And so we cleaned the Mahawi Theater. It's
You
something
played
that
board?
you just
I'm
did.
sorry, you paid board at your
We
own
paid
house?
board as children. It's something you
Wow.
just had to do.
Uh-huh.
And, we bought our clothing, and so we worked all weekend cleaning the Mahawi Theater, and we did not want to get in the car and go out and have ice cream with our parents. Back then, kids smoked cigarettes. We had smoking lounges at school. You smoked outside at school. I mean, now you're weird if you do smoke cigarettes. People look down on you. But back then, 12, 14 years old, you smoked cigarettes. It was not uncommon. Everybody smoked back then. So we just wanted to go to Penny Rock. A friend of ours would steal cigarettes from her parents. I mean, yeah, they were only 35 cents back then. We could have bought our own, but then your parents would find out about it because everybody knew everybody in town. When you were 14, you could, because you had the smoking lounge. But we just wanted to go smoke cigarettes. But our parents were insistent that we get in that car and go and have ice cream. So we did, and we brought our ice cream up to Lake Mansfield. While we were having our ice cream, all of a sudden, this huge orange bronze glow, it was almost like an amber orange bronze glow, came over the lake. It was huge. It was so frightening. And I knew, because I had had these experiences before, and nobody ever believed me. My mom never believed me, or my dad ever believed me. My sister always knew, because she had witnessed it before, that they were just coming for me. And my dad looked up and he said, excuse my language, but he said, "Holy shit." And we all started screaming and screaming. No, and because my father, he said he was going to chase it. And my mother's going, no, Joey, don't. And one thing that people don't understand is we lived very close to that lake. We were only like a street and a half away from the lake. We used to walk there all the time, my sister and I. It was a place that we would hang out at. Now it's very difficult to even get me to go there. I'm frightened of it. And so what I remember next from there is being levitated over Berkshire Heights.
Now, just right then, did you feel like you were being pulled out of the car, or how did that, what do you remember from that?
What I remember is being stuck. This is my memory of it. I can remember being stuck, and when you're levitated, I just remember the area and being stuck over Berkshire Heights, and you can't see anything. It's like you can see with your eyes, but you can't move your head. So I remember the area, but I remember not being able to move my head, my body, or anything else, and my family was not with me. It was bizarre, totally bizarre. And they, to this day, my sister, I'm not close with my mom and dad anymore because of all the lies that went on.
I
But
can
my
see.
sister always says to me, you know, Mom and Dad, they don't remember how we got home that night. They still ask me, Janie, do you remember how we got home? They don't remember how they got home. And it's ironically, there's another young man I never told the story to. No one ever heard the whole story about the whole Berkshire Heights thing because it was cut out of the whole Netflix thing. But he told me that he had an incident up at Berkshire Heights as well, which is bizarre. So I wasn't the only one that happened to up at Berkshire Heights. It had to have been a hot spot, that whole area. And from there, I remember waking up or being on a table in the same situation where you can't move. But at that time, I didn't see any little gray men that I would encounter as a child. And I don't call them aliens because I don't know if they were aliens. They were little gray men. That's what I remember, not at that incident, but as a child. I remember seeing these little gray men. My sister saw something too. She always called it a troll. Children see things, but they see things that to them look different. She still says, I think it was a troll. And I said, no, it was definitely a gray man. They were gray men. But I remember lying on a table in a room, and it was like a metallic room, but it was almost as if there were glass bricks, but they weren't. There were no lines in them. It was a metallic glass room, and there was red. It was like a red glow around it. I remember that. And that's all I can remember, being in that room. From there, I remember being in another room. There were a lot of children in that room and young people in that room. I did not know any of these people. There have been reports that they were classmates of mine. They were not classmates of mine. I did not know any of these people. Tom Warner said that he saw me. I didn't know Tom then, so I don't remember seeing him. And then the children just disappeared one by one by one. And
when you mean they disappeared, like they
just
popped?
like vanished. And I remember sitting there holding on to my legs. I was petrified. I was so scared. That I do remember. I just I remember that so well. And I remember what I was wearing. I can still remember what I was wearing. I had like a lime green sweatshirt on with short sleeves and just cut off shorts, and I was barefoot. I remember that.
Wow.
And then I remember we went there about, it must have been it was between 7:30 or 8 o'clock. It was like the sun was starting to go down at that time of the night, I would say. But I was a kid, so you don't really know what time it was, just that it was dusk. And
what was that room in particular like? Do you remember?
I just remember that there were a lot of people in that room. And I remember that there was like, it was quiet, but at the same time, I always remember like an MRI sound, you know, when you're in an MRI, like that. And that still happens to me to this day. It happens in my ears all the time. I get this clicking, click, click, click sound. And I've even gone and had MRIs to find out why it's doing that. And they can't figure it out. They can't find anything. But then I woke up on the lake.
Before we get into that part, I just want to ask you if you recall anything. You mentioned the sound, but this probably sounds weird. Were there any was it hard to breathe? Did you breathe like you normally do? Was there any smells that you remember or anything else like that?
In the car, I remember because I had to go through a series of hypnosis, because when my mom told me that this had happened, and I said, but you told me this never happened. My whole life, you've been telling me that this was all in my head, that I was crazy, not to talk about it. I had to go for PTSD hypnosis therapy. And in order to do this, you have to go for 3 to 4 weeks before they'll even hypnotize you. You have to be prepared to go to be hypnotized. You don't go one time and they hypnotize you. They have to make sure that you're ready to be hypnotized, because it's a traumatic event. And the person that I went to, he works with soldiers and police officers, and they have to know that you're prepared for what you're going to see. And I knew that this had happened to me before the 69 event, but I had to be prepared that I was ready for this. And I remembered smelling a wool smell. And I couldn't remember what this burning, like this wool smell was. And then I kept asking my mom, well, why did I keep smelling this wool smell? And she said it was because my dad had a wool army blanket in the back of the car. So when my sister and I were lying on the back seat of the car screaming, that's what the wool smell was, from the army blanket in the back of the car. That's the only thing she could figure out. That was the smell.
Wow. Here's another question related to when you're in there. If you had bare feet, did you recall anything about the floor when you were on it?
I don't. I was so scared.
Sure. I know. I'm just, I bet you were. I mean, I can't even imagine. But do pieces of things kind of fall together though over the years? Like, your recollection of certain things, you all of a sudden pops into your head. Anything like that happen to you all through the years?
When I woke up, I had horrible stomach pains, really horrible stomach pains. And I just remember every now and then I'll have really bad nightmares. I still sleep sitting up.
Wow.
And I can remember, that to me was basically the end of it all, because my childhood was worse than that. I had far worse experiences than that. And my sister's really the one that got me through it all. She was my saving grace. I don't know what I would have done without my sister, because she was really my saving grace, because nobody believed me but her.
Wow. So I'd like, if possible, like we can walk through this part and then we can get into everything that's happened afterwards and all that. But so you find yourself, all of a sudden you're awake at the lake, and anywhere near where you were parked?
It was right there. It was right on the beach that I woke up. I woke up on the beach, and I had really bad stomach pains, and I had to walk home on the dirt road. But like I said, it really was not that far, because it's just a street and a half away. I had to walk down the hill to get home on the dirt road. And ironically, my mom always locks the doors. She's really paranoid. And back then, you really didn't need to lock the doors. It was so safe in Great Barrington. The door was unlocked, which was bizarre for her. And I climbed into bed with my sister when I got home, and she hugged me, and we were really scared. We were frightened. And then we were told to never talk about it, just never talk about it again. And we never talked about it again, except for it was a shooting star, and people in town would say, oh yeah, it was swamp gas. If it came up, oh, it was just swamp gas, and just don't talk about it. You weren't supposed to talk about it.
Oh, you never had a family discussion about what happened in the car and how they got home? It just was not talked about?
No. My sister talks about a time in Connecticut, and I don't remember that time. She said, "Don't you remember the time in Connecticut that it happened?" And I don't remember that time. We were told not to remember any of these times.
Wow. That just sounds so hurtful to have gone
It's
through
very
such
hurtful.
and so and we'll get to all that, but the curious thing is to me is, because it's the first time I'm hearing this, is you had other experiences prior to that. In any type of way, do you think this is related to that?
Oh, definitely. I think that I know that this was happening to other children too in the area, because I had a friend call me that told me that it was happening to her sister a couple of streets over when we were living in a different house. It was happening to her sister. There were two girls. It was happening to her and her house, but her parents were listening to her and they moved because the girl was so frightened.
Wow. So it's some type of weird hotspot or something's going on there. Um, and there was I'm trying to remember what it was. I saw in the Yes Theory, there was a Jennifer that was on there. And so there's something going on through a government contractor or something there that had to do, well, go ahead. You know what I'm
Well,
talking
we have, I don't have the research like Jennifer has. She has all the knowledge of it, but
about.
we have General Electric that was going on. And then there was the spread company. They had the moon. They did the moon disc, which they left up on the moon, inviting them
That's what
to
it is.
come
Yeah.
down. And it was on, I believe it was July 16th, 1969, inviting them to come down. There was a lot going on through the government that was happening in the Berkshires.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really bizarre. And all those children that you saw when you were on whatever it was, did you recognize any of them?
No, I did not know any of those children. And they were all different ages. It wasn't just my age either. They were all different ages.
And no adults at all in that group that you saw?
No, they were all, I would say, maybe 18 down, I would say.
And was anyone talking to each other? Were there any screaming or
No,
anything like that?
everybody was quiet and really scared, really frightened.
Wow. That sounds like such a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. It has been for me, it's been a continuous nightmare. Some people seem to think that it's really fun to have something like this happen, but we don't know what it was. We don't know what happened. We don't know whether it was government. We don't know whether it was UFOs. We never said that it was UFOs. We don't know what happened. That's what I'm saying. We don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm. So you get through this, and you have to live your childhood basically with being told to forget about it and that it was nothing. And I mean, that sounds so damaging in general. But how do you cope with it now? Does it bother you now if someone says, "Oh, that's a bunch of baloney," that never happened? I mean, how do you deal with that now? Does it just not bother you, or does it upset you?
No, it doesn't upset me now because I know it happened. I have the videos of my husband when I was being hypnotized. He filmed all my hypnosis therapies. So I don't like watching them myself, but I know it happened. I always knew that it happened, and he always knew that it happened because he and my sister and I always talked about it ourselves. But when my mother confirmed it, we knew then that it really did happen. So then going through hypnosis really confirmed it.
Right.
So I don't care who believes it and who doesn't believe it. It doesn't matter to me anymore.
And what was it that made your mother finally say it happened?
You know, I guess because people were starting to come forward. And so she just decided, okay, I can now come forward. She just always wanted to make it out like I was crazy or something. I mean, she would call me trouble, and I don't know, she didn't want to talk about it.
Now, let me ask you this, and if you were ever exposed to any of someone like John Mack. I don't know even know if you know who he is. He was a Harvard professor, child psychologist, but he also took an interest in this topic and people that had encounters. And so the question is, did anyone, after this happened, did anyone come to the area and try to find out more information about what went on? Or was it kept basically quiet?
It was kept really quiet. I think the only people that ever really talked about it was the Reed family, because Tom's mom is so open-minded. He was really lucky that he had such a good mom that, and also the other woman that called me up to tell me that her sister, and I'm not going to use any names because they're very private people, but she was kind enough to call me and tell me that her sister had the same experience that I went through. And her mom was very open-minded as well. And I was blessed that she called me to tell me that she went through the same experience as me. So her mom was an extremely open-minded woman. And I think that when parents are open-minded like that, it's beneficial to the children because it gets them through such hard times like that.
Sure thing, absolutely. So I noticed at the end of the episode on Unsolved Mysteries, it gave an email address or some way to contact them. And it said, if you experience something around September 1st, 1969, please contact us and all that. Since this has aired, and it certainly got a lot of watches all over the world, as far as you know, have other people come forward and talked about this?
When I was on Facebook, which I'm not on Facebook anymore, I had so many people contact me that had experiences, and I still keep in touch with a lot of these people. And there's, like I said, there's the one man that's out in California that had a horrendous experience up at the Berkshire Heights area. And then there's the other girl. And then I met another woman that had an experience very similar to mine. And I hadn't even told her about the little gray men. And she told me about she described the same people or man that I used to see as a child. She saw the same exact men in a cave out in the desert. I mean, it was bizarre, at the same age as me. So, and her father worked for the military. So there was something going on back then in the 1960s, early 70s.
Yeah. So, and I do want to talk to you more about what happened in your childhood at some point here tonight, but just going along the lines of this one. So you try to, this thing happens, it's summer. I mean, it's late. Well, it's actually September, but it's still, I mean, I know it was a very hot day that day, but soon school starts, or it already started. Was this talked about at all? Do you remember this being talked about in school when you got back to it?
We weren't allowed to talk about it. We weren't supposed to talk about it. My sister and I, we used to watch UFOs all the time out of our bedroom window. And because you could see them over East Mountain, we would watch them. But you just didn't talk about it because you were called crazy. You're just crazy people. If you talked about it, it was always swamp gas. That's what they would call it, swamp gas.
I heard that. But what about other kids? No one else talked about it. I mean, I would think it would be a burning topic in the school because so many people saw that happen.
No, it was always swamp gas. UFOs just didn't exist.
Wow.
Even the radio station called it swamp gas.
And how many people reported it? Any idea? And where where would someone report what they saw in that area?
You would probably, I know that a friend of mine, her landlord said that she was a teenager at the time, and she's older than me. She told a friend of mine that she remembers seeing it. She was living in West Stockbridge, I believe it was at the time. She said that she actually remembers it coming over the scanner, the police scanner.
Mm-hmm.
She remembered hearing it come over the police scanner, but the police claim that they heard nothing, no reports. So this is just what I've heard through a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So you hear stories, and then Henry, my husband, he's talked to other people that saw it the same night as well. Many people saw it that night.
Yeah. And I've heard some of the descriptions of this thing, and it sounds like a fantastic, whatever it was, huge. And Jane, I'm trying to remember what her last name is. Jane
Green.
Green, that's right. She talks about it being so huge, she's looking at it from her car and she can't see one edge or the other.
It was huge.
But you only saw a light coming across the lake at that point, right? You never saw an object.
All I remember is this giant light, but it was huge. It took up the light. It was just huge. Yeah. And then I put my head down because I was so scared.
Now, did your father actually put the car in gear and start moving?
Yeah, and we were all screaming. Yeah, he started chasing it, and then I just remember just levitating. It was so fast. Everything happened so fast.
And your sister was I'm assuming you said she was in the back or with that army blanket or near that with you. Does she recall anything happening to you?
The only thing she remembers is me climbing into bed with her. That's it. And us being really scared.
Has she ever considered getting any type of regression therapy as well?
No, she won't. I've asked her if she wanted to, and she said no. But she always calls me now because it's funny, ever since I did go for hypnosis, things will come to me. Like my mother will say to her, please call Melanie and ask her if she can remember this or that, because if they ask me a question, it will come to me. Because of the hypnosis, things will come to me after a while. It might take a bit, but it will come to me. Even certain songs that my mother would sing to us when we were little that we would forget when we were like 3, it'll just come to me that we forgot about. It's amazing. It's very weird.
Wow.
I mean, I can remember bedspreads. I can remember what the floor looked like, but it takes a while.
Wow. And it sounds like such a traumatic situation. And I also heard you say on another interview that because you wanted to talk about it, you were locked in the basement. Is that so?
Well, that's when I was when we were living in the Russell Street house, and my sister and I. That's when we had twin beds back then when we were little, and that's when that to me was even actually more frightening, because that's when I would see this little gray man would come into my room, and I would tell my parents and they wouldn't believe me. But that's when my sister did see this thing, the same thing that friend of mine was happening at their place, which was just beyond. And all of these incidences always took place around water, always around water, the Housatonic River, Lake Mansfield, always around water. And I was so frightened that they had to have known something was going on, because my dad, he put locks all on the attic. Would go up. The attic was in our bedroom. It was the closet, and then the attic would go up. He took these bolts, those heavy bolted locks. He put about 5 of them on the attic door, hoping that it would help me to sleep at night.
Wow.
But it's not going to keep them out. They're going to come in anyways, and they're going to remove you and take you out. And then my mother would find me sleepwalking at night. afterwards. She said I'd be in her room and I would just go, "Hi, Mom, hi," afterwards. And then they couldn't get me to go to sleep. So they would, I got locked in the basement because of it, because it would drive them nuts. I was so scared to go to bed. I
Wow.
was scared to death. If I didn't have my sister, I would never have slept. I was afraid to go to school even. I was scared. I was so frightened by this.
Yeah. And did it finally stop?
It didn't stop until after that whole 69 incident, and then it happened again in the last episode would be, the last incident would have been in the 1990s, but then again, I didn't see them. It was just a huge bright light around my house, and I couldn't wake anybody in the house up. I couldn't wake any of the animals, any of my children up, or my husband up, and nothing happened though. But I just couldn't wake anybody up, and then I got under the covers. But that was the last time, was in the 90s. And I don't ever want it to happen again.
I
I
bet.
do not ever want it to happen again. And I've had a lot of health issues because of it. I had early eye surgeries. I've had tear duct surgeries, sinus surgeries. I've had a lot of health issues. I just don't ever want to have to go through it again.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't even imagine coping with that. I mean, I just can't. When you mentioned that you had stomach pain, did anything come of that, or have you had any trouble?
I've had a lot of gynecological problems, yes. And also, my dad, when I was a child, he was always bringing me to the doctors for stomach issues, always as a child.
After that?
Oh, yeah. Always as a child, he was bringing me to the doctors.
Wow. Wow. Sounds awful. I just don't know how. Well, you're here, and you're a very nice lady, and I'm sure that it's almost, you talk about therapy. It must be also comforting to talk to someone else that has gone through this experience. You don't feel so all alone after you speak to someone like that went through it, because it just seems like such a hard thing. It would be such a hard thing to bring up, like, to someone you're trying to get comfortable with, trying to get to know. I mean, how do you breach the topic like that, of this whole situation? I mean, have you confided in your friends along the way?
I don't usually talk about it. Actually, Henry talks about it. My husband talks about it more than I talk about it. I mean, the only people I ever talked about it to was, I had a boyfriend in seventh grade, sixth and seventh grade. I met him when I was 11 years old, and I always talked to him about it, and my sister about it. I could talk to him, and then I could talk to my husband about it, and my very close friends always knew about it. My really intimate friends knew about it, but I never talk about it. I still don't really talk about it, and except
Sure.
for to my very close friends. Henry talks about it more than I do, or
Yeah.
I talk about it to people like you, or people that I do podcasts with, but it's not something that I talk about.
Sure.
It's a personal thing for me.
Right. And I don't know how much you've looked into other people that have, claim to have had experiences like you, but someone asked in the message room about implants. Have you ever been curious, or have you ever heard about people claiming that there were implants?
Yes, one of my sons, and I'm not going to say which one, but one of my sons claims that happened to him, and I believe him that did happen to him.
Oh, so this is, if you're up to talking about it, is this continuing has this continued in your lineage, in your family?
I think so, but I don't think he would like for me to talk about it.
Sure. I understand. Yeah. And just to let you know, that's not anything uncommon. It's, I mean, from what I've heard, a lot of people have said that these things happen within a family for some reason. I have no idea. And just like, why would they choose you compared to your sister or anyone else in your family?
We don't
No,
really
big
know if
question
it
mark.
didn't happen to my sister, though, because she doesn't want to remember. She knows that she saw the little man, and she keeps talking about an incident that took place in Connecticut, and I don't remember that time either. And the hypnotist wanted me to continue, but it was so scary what I already saw that I did not want to continue, because what I saw was enough.
Sure.
It was so frightening.
And so, talking about your other experiences, when would you say the it was the youngest that you remember something happening?
Uh, I would say it started at 2. The most
2?
I would say that's when my mother tells me a really bizarre, creepy story that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It makes no sense, and she's told it to me so many times, and she can't figure it out either. It might not have anything to do with it, but to me, it makes no sense. And I used to say to her, Mom, that makes no sense what you're talking about. But she tells me a story about how she made me go to my room when I was like 2 or 2.5. It was like a timeout that she gave me, and she said she went to check on me because I was too quiet. And she said I had a clothespin with cloth wrapped around it, and I was sticking a pin into it. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "This is a doll, and that's you."
Ooh.
And it's like, first of all, we didn't have television back then. So why would I be making a voodoo doll? Because how would I know about voodoo at that age? And we wouldn't watch something like that on TV back then because they wouldn't have that on TV. So where would I learn to be putting things in a person?
Wow.
So,
Only on Gilligan's Island they did that.
and we didn't have TV. I
Yeah.
mean, think about
Mm.
it. That would have
Wow.
been 1959 because I was born in 57. So that would have been 1959. It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes
Mm.
no sense at all. So I
Mm.
can't figure that one out. And she's
Wow.
told me that story so many times. It makes me, I don't know whether she tells me that story to make me feel bad that I
Mm.
did that or what.
Historically, it sounds like it. Historically, in your family, I wouldn't be surprised, unfortunately. Now, going back to your sister's Connecticut incident that she remembers, did she give you any details about that?
No, she always says to me though, don't you remember that time in Connecticut when we saw that UFO that was following us in Connecticut? And I'm like, I really don't, Jane, because we were so, it was embedded in our heads that we needed to forget about all of this. We could never talk about it. We had to forget about it. Just don't talk about it. Never talk about these experiences.
Wow.
I mean, to be locked in a basement, if you talk about it, you're not going to talk about that. You're going to zip it. So of course you're going to forget all of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And as
I
far as
remember seeing it out in the daytime too. I remember seeing it in the trunk of a tree. It was outside in the next door neighbor's yard once, right at the trunk of a tree, sitting down, calling me over. It was so scary. And I remember running.
wow, so this thing was, whatever it was happening even in daylight.
Yes.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. I can still see it to this day too. And my sister said when she saw it up in the tree too.
And would you describe it as what people call the typical gray?
Yes,
Very much like that.
very much like that.
So the large eyes and the large head and no visible nose or
Very
mouth
much so.
type of thing.
Very much so.
Wow. And moving. Do you remember the movement, like a natural moving, or
Oh yeah.
yeah.
But I remember the hands. The hands were like this.
You mean like two fingers type of thing? 3 fingers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I can
can you see?
yeah, can see it, yeah. Huh. And that's one of the characteristics that stuck out to you. Anything else you can remember?
No. Oh, well, I remember, and I have this dream all the time of it too. And for the longest time, and I can still see it, being levitated down the Housatonic River, because I can still see behind, even though you can't move, you're still. I remember being above the river, but I can remember you because you can move your eyes. I can remember the back of Melvin's drugstore. I can remember the building where Melvin's drugstore was, being levitated down there, down the river.
And at that particular time, do you remember ending up anywhere?
No, I don't. I don't know where I ended up, but I still have that dream to this day too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like an astral dream.
You wonder if it's a dream or not, right?
It's an astral dream. It's so real. And then I just like wake up to it. And it's like, where am I? Where am I?
Now, when getting back to the incident, September 1969, when, like later in life, did you finally start hearing people talk about it? Like, I know Tom Reed has talked about it for a long time, but I mean, when did you start hearing like whispers of people talking about it?
About 3 years ago, my mom contacted me, and that's when she told me to go to the Historical Society. And then I just kind of like said, why are you doing this now? And I said, why? And then I asked my sister, and she goes, why is she doing this? She said it was a shooting star for all these years. Why all of a sudden? And I said, I don't know. Why is she doing this? And then I was on Facebook, and I saw that Tom Warner was writing a book, and I could never even watch UFO films, movies, anything like that. But my husband has always been into UFOs, and he would watch them. So his birthday was coming up, and I knew that he was friends with Tom Warner on Facebook. So I knew he was writing this book. I saw that he was writing this book, and I said, I contacted him. I had run into him at the supermarket buying corn, and I chatted with him when I saw him, and we had met each other, and I knew that I had seen him. It was like, wow. I thought he was Henry's friend on Facebook, and he thought that I friended him, Henry friended him, or whatever. But it was really cool to meet him. It was like we connected, and it was interesting because I felt like I'd known him, and it was bizarre. And then I private messaged him and said, I'd like to buy your book for Henry for a gift. And he said, I need to talk to you. And I said, you need to talk to me? And he said, yes. And then he told me, I saw you. And I knew that it had happened, but I didn't know exactly. And now he's the second person telling me that it happened. First, my mother's telling me. Now he's telling me too. And I'm like, okay, before I get into this, I really got to go for therapy, because now I got two people telling me. First, they're telling me it didn't happen. Now they're telling me it did happen. So I have to be unbrainwashed. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like it was so confusing for me, because I knew it happened, but then they told me it didn't happen, and now they're telling me it did happen.
Yeah. So what did your mother want to accomplish as far as the Historical Society? How did that whole thing
I have no idea, Martin. I really have no idea what it was all about.
Huh.
I don't know. I don't know what any of this was all about, to be honest with you, for any of them. I almost feel like a pawn in this chess game, to be very honest with you.
And then so you meet Tom Warner, and then when does Tom Reed? When do you get connected with Tom Reed?
Well, interestingly enough, Tom Reed told me that my mother and my brother were doing radio show. We did a radio show in 2013 in Oregon about this. I had no idea.
How about that?
So they were talking about this when I was being told that none of this ever happened.
Jeez.
Now, I never heard the radio show before, so I don't know. I'm just repeating something that was told to me.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. Wow, really?
So as late as 2013, you were still being told it never happened.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, I knew that it had happened. I knew, but I was being told it hadn't happened. I was the crazy person in the family. But I knew I wasn't, but I was being told I was.
So now I'm a little confused because I didn't know, we've never talked about your brother before. What was
Well,
his...
I don't like to talk about him because I'm not close with my brother, so I'd rather not talk about him.
Sure. Okay. All right. I was just wondering if there was anything he remembered from that, but that's fine. And so obviously he must have remembered something to be on a radio show. That's all I'm understanding through this, that there had to be some reason he was on that or picked to go on that show. And also makes you wonder, you know, how many other people will know about it, but will not talk about it.
Well, I think a lot of people expect to make money when they want to do shows like this, and you don't get paid to do these kind of shows. And when they can't make money off of doing these kind of shows, then they won't do these shows.
Yeah,
it's not about making money. This is not about making money. This is a historical event. That's what it is. For me, it's therapy. Being able to finally be able to talk about something that happened to you when you were told to shut up about it your whole life and that you're crazy.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with money for me.
Right, right. And well, I'm glad that you have a supporting husband. It sounds like it. And but it's not something that ever would come up at the dinner table. It's just quiet conversations, I imagine.
No. I mean, I can talk to my children about it, obviously. I can talk to my grandchildren about it. I can talk to my sister and my best friends about it. But I don't go to a dinner party and say, "Oh, by the way, something horrible happened to me," and we're not quite sure if it was the government, if it was UFOs, or what it was. It's not something that we bring up.
And what about how did the grandchildren and children, what did they think about watching you on Netflix? I mean, that must have been quite a experience for them to see that.
They don't really talk about it. It's not a big deal to them, really. I only watched Netflix one time, to be honest with you.
So I've watched it 4 more times.
Yeah, you watched it more than me. It's not a big deal to us, really.
Well, it's my background research.
Yeah.
But I did think they did a great job with it.
They did do a good job. They did.
Yeah. I mean, everything about it, it's just high quality. If anyone gets a chance to watch it, I think if you don't have Netflix, maybe there is another way. Not everybody has Netflix, but maybe there is another way, or maybe it will be out there soon. So
they did a fabulous job, and they were very sweet people, very, very lovely people. I enjoyed working with them for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids are happy that I'm finally able to speak my truth because they felt horrible for me, what I went through. That's what they're happy about. That's the main thing.
That's great. That's great. So we are ready to go into the break. For those of you on YouTube, you're going to be seeing a clip that's going to play. And for those of you who are over at KGRA Radio, we'll be right back right after the messages.
The United States Air Force, in discharging its responsibility for the aerospace defense of the nation, is called upon to investigate reports of unidentified flying objects. 2 Air Force officers have, over the years, been very closely associated with this activity. Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Tacker was formerly the chief spokesman for the Air Force on the matter, and Major Hector Quintanilla is now the chief of Project Blue Book. Major Quintanilla, what are the objectives of Project Blue Book?
The objectives of the program are twofold. They're the same as they have been since 1953 when the regulation was written. First of all, to try to determine if the UFO phenomena presents a threat to the security of the United States. And second, to determine if the UFO phenomena exhibits any technological advances which could be challenged to research and development.
What's the record so far?
To date, we have over 10,000 cases at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, of which 646 of these remain unidentified. That's not to say that we could not have identified more cases if we had gotten to the observer quickly and checked the local activity.
The Air Force has been accused from time to time of hiding information about UFO. What do you have to say to that kind of thing?
Well, these charges are absolutely untrue. Actually, the United States Air Force releases statistics on the UFO phenomena through the Department of Defense press desk periodically, and we've always honored accredited media when they want to investigate a given specific sighting.
There's nothing to hide.
There's nothing to hide at all.
Is there anything in the files, either classified or unclassified, that would indicate that there may be extraterrestrial visitors over here?
First of all, the project is completely unclassified. And there's nothing in the records that would indicate that we have been visited by any advanced civilization.
How does the Air Force look upon people who make reports of UFO? Do they look on them as qualified observers?
Yes, they do look on them as qualified observers. Actually, most people who report a UFO sighting are patriotic citizens who have been mystified by something that they've seen, and through a patriotic sense, report it to the local law enforcement officials or to the United States Air Force Base near them.
What would you consider as a person qualified to interpret what he sees?
Well, I consider astronomers are genuinely expert in their field.
Go.
All right, welcome back. And my guest tonight, I'm happily talking to Melanie Kirchdorfer. I did want to talk about, before I bring her right back in, did want to quickly mention this picture. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. A number of people have sent me this picture because it's in the news out on the West Coast that someone filmed a mothership. But I did want to point out to those, again, on YouTube, you can see clearly that right above the light, the street light, is where this anomaly is. And it's just what can happen if you take a picture and there's a bright light in the frame, is that reflection like that. And there's another picture that, it doesn't show the light in the frame because it's cropped out. So I'm not at photo analysis at all. I have to make that clear. But that's my opinion on this. It's just something caught in the camera because of the light reflection in the lens. And I hope I don't get too much hate mail from that one. But anyway, I'm welcoming back Melanie. How are you, Melanie?
I'm fine. Thank you, Martin.
Good so far? You good so far?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think we're going to be taking calls in another half hour or so. And so just if you call in, Bill will screen you. Be respectful. And like you always are, I have some great callers. So there's really no need for me to even say that. But so we were talking before the break about all different kinds of things. But I'm going to also look in the chat, too, because I did see that a lot of people were putting in some questions there. Someone wanted to know more about the hands. But I want to go back also to when you were wherever you were on September 1st, 1969. I know you said you didn't see any type of beings, but did you have a feeling that there was some type of presence, or did you feel any now I know this probably sounds odd, but a lot of people talk about it. Did you hear anything in your head?
You can, like I said, you can hear that clicking sound that sounds like you're in an MRI machine. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if you are in one of those machines, but you're not, because you're lying on a table and you can't move. It's just your eyes. And I remember it was as if that it was like almost like it was spinning, the red glow around that metallic space.
Mm.
And then I didn't see anybody in the room.
Mm-hmm. But did you
Just
have any
sound?
Pardon me. I'm sorry.
Just
you have
that clicking sound in my head. It was like in my head. It
Hmm.
wasn't in the atmosphere. It was in my head that you could hear it.
A lot of people that have had these type of experiences they seem to hear something kind of in their mind, like it's okay, calm down, or anything
No,
like
I
that.
didn't
Nothing
hear
like
that. I just
Nothing.
had the clicking, that
Yeah,
click,
that's
click,
it. Yeah. Mhm.
noise.
Mhm.
And like I said, I still have that noise all the time, a lot. And it's usually in the evening, I have that, it happens. And I've even gone to have MRIs for it.
Wow. I'm going to see if I can actually load this. Is it okay if I share the little video you sent me the other day with the lamp?
That's fine. It
Okay.
happens all the time too.
I do want to talk about that. No, it doesn't look like it's going to let me load it. I'm sorry. But let's talk about what happens to you at airports and when we were talking the other day, all of a sudden your computer went poof. Luckily tonight
We've been lucky, but we're not in a full moon. It usually happens between a new moon and a full moon, and a couple of days after the full moon. I have an electrical problem, but I have been struck by lightning 3 times. One time I was out for 3 hours. I used to be the American Intercultural Student Exchange person for this area.
Mm.
And I went downstairs with 2 of my dogs to clean the cat box. And I was downstairs, and all of a sudden, everything went black. And the next thing I remember, my exchange student, my Dutch son, I call my Dutch son Joey, and Henry, I hear, she's down here, she's down here. So I went down there around noon, 12 noon. And this was, my husband was home from work with Joey, so it had to have been 3:30. So I was out for easily 3.5 hours. That's how long. Everything blew up in the house. The dog fence line, the TVs, the microwave oven, everything blew up.
So your house was hit by struck by lightning, definitely.
And the 2 dogs were passed out. One of my dogs actually passed away 6 months later, and I'm sure it's from because she was way too young. She was only like 4 years old.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, it was sad, but that was a bad strike. We lost almost all of our electrical stuff in the house that time. And then the other time was a ball of lightning went through the window and hit me. We have a finished apartment down in the basement. And it hit me in the hand. My son watched that one go through the window. He said, "Did you just see that ball of lightning?" I said, "Yeah, I just got hit in the hand by it." And then another time I was on the phone talking to my sister, and it hit my hand talking on the phone, and it turned the phone off. It didn't, she had to call me back because it didn't ruin the phone, but it disconnected us. And she
Was
said,
this
"What
a
just
landline?
happened?" Yeah,
Like
it was when I had a landline.
Yeah.
And she goes, "What just happened? We got disconnected." And I said, "I just got struck by lightning again." And she said, "Oh my God, you keep getting struck." And I said, "I know, it's really bizarre." But
You have a lightning rod now?
No, we don't actually. But when I go through the airport, it doesn't matter. Even if we call in ahead of time so they can screen me, because I don't have any, I never did anything. I don't even have a parking ticket or anything. And so we'll call in ahead of time so they can do a background check on me, but it never fails. When I go through customs, I get this X on my passport, and I got to go through a double screening check. My husband always shakes his head. And they got to go through all my bags and check everything. And he's got to sit there and wait for me because we've done the check, the thorough check, so that we can get through customs okay. And we just have to sit there and wait. Well, they go through everything to make
What do you
sure.
think causes that? How?
I have no idea, but I set the alarm off. The last time they kept going here on my chest to see what it was. And I said, there's nothing there. I said, could it be my do I have an underwire? I did have an underwire bra. I said, is it my underwire? And they're like, no, it's not that. It's something here, they said. And I never had open heart surgery. I had no jewelry on, but they said it was right here.
Did it
It
trigger
kept putting the
with
wand.
the wand?
Yeah, it was the
And it
wand.
beeped when they put it there?
Mhm.
There's your plant.
They could not figure it out. And I said to them, well, I've been struck by lightning. And every time I go through like Marshall's or TJ Maxx, any of those stores, beep, 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 beep. Now they know me at the local Marshall's and they'll say, let her through. She's been struck by lightning. All my friend Lely, she goes, oh, here we go again. Or my daughter-in-law, she'll say to my grandson, oh, Nina, my nickname is Nina. They'll go, oh, Nina's here. She just walked in the door because they'll hear the beeper go off if I'm supposed to meet them.
Yeah. And then your friends wear rubber boots around you.
Yeah. Well, one time before this all happened, we were in Mexico. I was down in Mexico with my mom. And I can feel it when it's going to happen. I can feel the energy. It's almost like this stress thing that comes out. And I said to my mom, I said, see those lights there? They're going to pop. I can tell. I'm going to pop them. She goes, you're crazy. You're nuts. Why do you talk like that? I said, watch. They're going to pop, Mom. Sure enough, there were like 5 or 6 of them on the walkway. And my husband, Henry, and my dad were with me. Boom, 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 boom. All of them popped. And she goes, she's weird. She is just crazy, this girl. And they did. They all popped. Every single one of them. So this is not a new thing. This has been going on for a while.
That is so fascinating. You sent me a video and the lamp is like flashing on and off. That was really bizarre. Flickering and flickering.
I set car alarms off. It's embarrassing, to be honest with you. It's very embarrassing.
Someone had a question here. I'm trying to find it. And because, maybe it's too personal of a question. So I'll ask it this way. Do you happen to have Rh negative blood?
I don't. I have O positive blood.
Okay. All right. Then the reason that question was asked, by the way, just so you know, that there's been a lot of people that have had some type of encounters of what you're talking about that happen to have that blood type. And
I've heard that before also.
Yeah. Let's see. So are you having, this is a question up here also that I thought was a pretty good one. Are you having, I believe you spoke about it, your one levitating dream that you had, but have you had reoccurring dreams about this or similar situations?
It's mostly that one astral dream where I'm going down the river. That's the main one that I have. I've had that one for a long, long time.
But no other dreams?
The one on Housatonic River I have all the time.
Mm.
I don't know if you're aware, I don't know if I ever told you, Martin, that I think that there's also, besides this whole government situation that people talk about, for myself, for years, I started researching. I think that there's another aspect behind it all. I think because we have a lot of the indigenous peoples that were around here, I think that there could be an element of that also involved in this that people don't even look towards. I've done a lot of traveling in my life, and I've spent time in the ruins and in the Mayan ruins in Belize and in Mexico. And if you yourself know anything about the ruins, the indigenous people were really in tune to UFO phenomena. And King Philip's War took place around here. And when I, years and years ago, when I first wanted to look into this because I knew that this had happened to me before my mom even started telling me that this really did happen to me. I started researching because the indigenous people had what was called the little people. And I thought maybe that's what I had been seeing as a child, that it was a ghost. And it was one of the little people. I even went all the way out to South Dakota to look into all of this. And I started looking into King Philip's War and all of that. And one of the things that I would really like to do, because I know that the Munsee tribe is coming back here, they just have a place now in Williamstown. I'd like to find out more about, see if they have any records of, if they saw anything or have any records of phenomena that took place while they were here. Because a friend of mine, she has the field where Tom had his experience, a lot of arrowheads have been found in that field.
Are you talking about Tom Warner or Tom Reed?
Tom Reed. That field, a friend of mine used to own the farm that's in that area. She's
Right
no
by the
longer
bridge?
with us. Right. She's no longer with us anymore, but when she owned the area around there, they used to find trunks of arrowheads, and they were asked not to remove them by the tribe at one point. It wasn't her, but it was some other people that were removing them. They were asked not to remove them anymore, but that whole area is full of indigenous artifacts. So there's a whole vortex right along that whole river. I mean, the Great Wigwam was where the Congo Church is today. So everything took place right along that river.
Yeah, all the settlements were along rivers, you know.
It's a sacred spot.
I'm wondering, if that might be part of it. Now, when you say the indigenous people, are there actually people there today?
They're just starting to come back. I didn't realize that there were so many people until I started meeting. I met a friend of mine who is First Nations, and he started introducing me by going to powwow how many that there are around here, but I had no idea. And I have just been reading recently that the Munsee Mohican tribe, they're coming back, and they have an office that they opened in Williamstown. But because none of us are really going anywhere right now, I haven't been in contact with them, but I really would like to be able to do some more research on it, because I find it fascinating, to be honest with you. I love going into all the Mayan ruins in Belize and in Mexico. And I think that there's definitely a connection there. I think that they have a lot to tell us. And I think that we're destroying the planet. And we need to be a little bit more open about what we're doing. And maybe they're really not trying to hurt us. Maybe they were wondering what we were doing. And they were looking at us as children and seeing if we were being harmed by all the pollution in that river, in the Housatonic River, because it was so polluted from General Electric.
Yes. I know you're not the type of person to look into the UFO topic, as far as like what I do and looking into different encounters, or maybe you are, but one of the things that you often hear is the message of what you're saying. And that is, in one of the cases in I'm just trying to think of the Ariel school in, just forgetting the name of the where it was located exactly. But they received, I want to say telepathic, I don't know what else to say, but messages about the planet, taking care of the planet. It needs to be taken care of. There's a lot of that, and who knows why, or if any of that's true, but why would 65 kids make that up? And that's really what that boils down to, is a lot of them got that message. The planet needs to be cared for.
I agree.
Mm.
So
And
I believe there's a connection.
if we are being observed by whatever we're being observed by, we aren't doing a very good job. You know, poisoning all of our rivers and our water supply, and it's crazy. And it's not like we're ignorant. We know what we're doing. It's unfortunately, I feel like I'm getting on a stump here, and I don't mean to, but it's all boils down to money and profits, and unfortunately, yeah. So maybe we need that lesson driven into us. I don't know, but I think what I'd like to do, if you're all right with it, and Bill's all right with it, and everybody else is all right with it, I think I'd like to open the phone lines early. If that's all right.
That's fine.
And I'll check with Bill. But if so, that number, I think he'll be just fine, as long as he's not sleeping or something right now. But I'm going to pull up the number here. And so Bill will answer the line, and that number is 855-472-5483. If you have a question for our guests, I'll look through the chat as well. So I know you've been asked, since this has become, the topic that a lot of people are talking about. You've been asked from all kinds of places to be on their shows. But is this the first time you've done a one-on-one interview, or have you done those before?
No, I've done several one-on-one interviews before.
Oh, so I feel so less special now. No, that's good. And because I know right away that people were trying to reach out to you, I'm sure right away, as soon as that series aired, right? People were trying to figure out a way to get in touch with you.
But they didn't know how to get in touch with me because my Facebook page was actually my husband's Facebook page. A lot of people were contacting me through his builder page. He's a contractor, so he does restoration work for old homes.
Oh, wow.
So they were actually going through his restoration page and contacting me that way. He was screening.
Wow. Yeah, I don't doubt it at all. Wow. So I guess we can go back, if you're up for talking about it more, about your childhood experience. We may have a call. Let me just take a look. Oh, that Bill is ready and standing by again. That number is 855-472-5483. So growing up, you're having these experiences. And do you remember anything? You remember the little people, or whatever you want to call them, the little grays. Was it one at a time? Did you see them one at a time? Were there more than one? And what happened when you saw them?
I remember mainly there always being one, but I also remember, and I talk about it too in the video that my husband, when he filmed it, I remember being up in the attic, being levitated up in my attic, and I believe that's why my dad put all those locks on the door, because I was so hysterical. But I remember seeing the rafters up in the attic, so I had to have been levitated up in the attic. Wow. And I remember being up in that attic levitating. But back then there were no buildings around that house back then either. It was all fields, and there was a field all the way down to the river as well. Now there's all buildings around that river, and there's a CYO building there as well too. It's just so different to go there now. My sister still says too, that was the creepiest house. Very creepy house.
So you remember being levitated, but do you remember
in the attic, and then going out, and then being taken out through the attic and then down that river? I don't know where they would bring me once they got me down that river.
So you're saying
street. There were suicides on that street too. Something weird was going on that street.
So yeah, I find it really interesting that it's so regional, that these things.
Oh yeah. And then 2 streets over, the same thing was happening to another girl my age. There were two daughters, and it was another girl 2 streets over. It was the same thing going on.
Wow. And
They moved up to Stockbridge because their mother was listening to them.
yeah. And as far as you know, when you saw, getting back to the beings, when you saw these things, were they like, did they touch you, come up to you close, or did you just remember seeing them?
It's telepathic communication is what they do. And I just remember one time like pointing at my sister and not saying anything, but like that. You're so scared. You're so frightened as a child. You're just so scared. It's like having a boogeyman in your room. It is a boogeyman in your room. You're so scared. I mean, imagine being 4 years old and 5 years old and 6 years old and having a monster. This is a monster to a child, and then trying to get help from your parents, and then they lock you in a basement. It's a horrible thing to have happen.
I just can't
and
even
then
imagine.
have everybody tell you that you're crazy, except for your sister saying, no, it really did happen because I saw it too.
Wow. We have someone on the line. We have Rob calling from Pennsylvania. Hi, Rob. Welcome to the show. Can you hear me, Rob?
Hello.
Hey, Rob. You're live. How are you?
Yeah, not very. I can't hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it must be something on Bill's. Bill has a brand new computer. So, and now can you hear well enough to understand him saying hi to you?
Yeah, I can hear you, Martin, but not very well. I'm just going to go ahead and ask my question.
Sure.
I have two. I'm gonna ask the what I think might be the easy one first. I remember you, and by the way, thank you for being on the show, Melanie.
Go ahead.
Hello? Did we lose you?
So yeah, we can't hear anything, Bill. Bill has a new computer at KGRA. I have a new computer because I was fed up with problems with it last week. So we will get these bugs worked out if Rob.
And we don't have a full moon, so.
Oh, am I still on?
There you are, Rob. Yes. Go ahead. We didn't hear your question.
I heard the guy screening the calls. So I'll do this again. I'll try.
Yeah, we're waiting.
The man screening the calls.
No, you are live on the air right now, Rob.
Okay, but I'll ask the question over him. I'm sorry, Melanie. Did you see any detail in the light that you remember? You spoke about there's a real bright light in front of the car when you were young. Did this light or any other time that involved these experiences, did the light have any details that you could describe other than maybe it was a big flashlight, you know?
I just remember that it had like an amber, bronze, reddish glow to it. It was just brilliant, and it was huge. It was really, really huge. And I remember putting my head down. I was so scared because I knew they were coming for me. And that's what would always happen around the house. It would be this bright light.
Okay. All right, thanks. And I remember you mentioning that we were in that one room with all the children and they disappeared one by one. Did you have any way of telling how much time passed? Or did you feel that you could tell how much time was passing between the children apparently just disappearing from your view?
Not between the children, but I was there for a long time. I know that because my parents and I, we must have been there around 7:30, 8 o'clock because it was dusk. And then when I woke up, the sun was just starting to come up.
Wow.
And it was in September. So I was gone for a long time. I didn't look at a watch because I didn't have a watch. I was a kid. But I still, to this day, I raise chickens. And when I go to feed the chickens, I still look to see what time it is when the sun is coming up that time of the year. And I still can't figure it out. But it's about, I would say, 5:30 in the morning, when the sun's coming up in September. I really don't know, but it was a long time when the sun's starting to come up.
Hey, Rob, thank you for your great questions.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Melanie. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Before we have another caller, before I take him, though, I wanted to say this, that I find it really interesting that all of a sudden you must have been gone from the car and your parents drive home, everybody goes to bed, you're not there. And, it just seems like such an odd thing where they didn't say, hey, where's Melanie? And put out a search party for you or anything. And it must have been like they were in some type of trance or something. I mean,
well, Janie talks about that. Janie and my mom talked about that. And Janie always says, I swear that they used to put some kind of fairy dust on us or something. She always says that. Whenever we talk about it, she goes, they always used to put fairy dust on us. I said, what do you mean? She's there because you would come back in, you would be gone, and then you would just appear. So Mom and we always say that they must have put fairy dust on us. Like, then you would just appear and be standing in her room, sleepwalking. She's there. It was creepy.
Wow. Amazing. All right. Now we have Ali calling from Dallas. Ali, welcome to the show. Ali, can you hear us?
Yes, your voice is a little low.
All right.
But,
Yes.
The question I wanted to ask Melanie was that, the fact that her body sets off alarms in airports or detectors, this means that there's something really different from her body compared to someone who doesn't detect it. And I feel that this should be scientifically studied in detail. I was wondering if, she could get involved with the community and people could maybe set up some kind of detectors and maybe even see some scientists in MIT or Stanford, because this needs to be looked at, and maybe we'll discover something amazing about this, because there has to be a difference.
Interesting. Have you thought about anything like that?
I haven't, to be honest with you. I wouldn't know where to begin, to be honest with you. I mean, I have sat at the round table when I was sick with years ago with Lyme disease, and I didn't get too far with that one. So I don't know if I'm going to get too far with an implant, because I didn't get very far at the round table at the university with Lyme disease. So I doubt I'll get very far with an implant.
Well, I think Ali also meant, possibly not an implant, but there's something that's doing it. There's something about you.
Well, I have for my ears, I've tried to work with that, and I didn't get anywhere with that either.
Yeah.
I've tried with all my health issues, and I have gotten nowhere.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the call, Ali.
Thank you very much, Ali.
Thank you very much. Just one last thing I wanted to say, that I hope that you have recalled this event in great detail, as much as you can remember every single detail, and have it written down somewhere, so this information is not lost. That's all.
Thank you. It is a historical event, and that's what's so important about it. You're very right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Martin and Melanie. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Yep. So the line is open again, and that number is 855-472-5483. And we welcome your calls. Great questions so far. And yeah, one of the things you said about the 5 locks on your attic That's really that your father put up there. And the thing that struck me is when he put those locks or 3 locks or whatever it is you said on the attic. Am I picturing one of these attics where the panel comes down and the stairways inside the panel, or is it like a stairway up to the attic?
No, it was a closet, and then it was a stair, like a ladder stair, but it wasn't the kind
Yeah.
that you pull down. It was the kind that just went up, and then
I
it was
see.
a full attic.
Yeah. And so he must have heard you tell the story that you were up and you felt like you were levitated in the attic. Is that why he did that?
Oh, I was scared to death of that attic.
And not to pit one against the other, but was your father a little more sympathetic to you than your mom? Yes.
Oh yeah, he was the one that brought me to the doctors all the time. And ironically, my Henry, he would go to the same doctor because we discovered later that we went to the same doctor in Housatonic because the doctor had a grandfather clock at
that
that
you
doctor
remembered?
back
Yeah.
then. And we both remember seeing the grandfather clock.
Yeah.
But my mom never brought me to that doctor. It was always my dad that took me to the doctor because of these stomach pains that I always had.
Yeah. Here's whoops, where'd it go? Right here. Here's a question in chat. Did you ever have any X-ray after that? After they wanded your chest, your upper chest, and they kept setting off the alarm there. Have you ever thought about getting an X-ray to see why that happens? And I'm not saying specifically for a implant, but just in general.
I have had a heart ablation before, and I've had what do you call it? I had a heart attack at one point. So I've had
Wow.
what do you call it when you have to have a catheterization done
Like a
to
stent?
just make sure that you're okay. Yeah, not a stent, but when they run the catheterization to check your heart. So if there was something in there, I would think they would have picked it up because I looked at it myself. I was curious to see what your heart looks like. I wanted to watch. I didn't want. I wanted to see what it looked like.
You're brave.
I would think that they would have picked it up.
Yeah, you would think so.
Then I would think. I mean, they weren't X-raying me, but they were looking at my heart. Then they weren't looking at my chest, though. I don't know.
And had you ever been able to talk to your dad about the incident at any point in your life, or that just never happened?
They're not someone that you can really have a conversation like that about. Plus, he can't hear really well also.
I mean, it just impresses me that he says "holy," and then starts chasing after it, and then it's not a topic of conversation.
Oh, he remembers it like it was yesterday. I mean,
he does.
He remembers it very well.
But he probably doesn't remember driving home, right? You said that.
No. According to my sister, they talk about it and they don't remember. My mother always says to my sister, "How did we get home? I don't remember coming home. Do you remember how we got home?" And Janie's like, "No."
Wow. Someone has an interesting thing. I'm probably not going to put it up. It's about their daughter. But I'll ask you this because it's a really weird question, and I hope you're okay with it. Have you ever had any situations with owls?
All the time. In fact, I got goosebumps that they are on my property all over, and I have one that sits outside my bathroom window and looks in I have this huge window in my bathroom. I have photographs of it. It looks at me right in my window. It will sit there staring at me. I had a girl that was camping on my property. She moved because that owl used to follow her everywhere. And I used to say, "What, you don't like my owl?" And she said, "It's too creepy. Owls aren't supposed to be following you around in the daytime, and that owl is following you, and now it's following me everywhere." So she left. It freaked her out too much. No, I've got an owl that follows me everywhere.
Oh,
Why?
wow.
What is it?
I don't
What's
even
the
know if I should bring this up. There's a lot of people that make a connection between actually between the grays and the owls. That you're thinking you're seeing an owl, but it's not. There's a guy that's written books on it, and it's pretty fascinating. And you know, a lot of people will. It comes up in a conversation about encounters a lot more than you can imagine. We have another caller. We can talk about that later.
I had
Even
no idea. I will send you that photograph because you're going to be fascinated by it. It's a
wow,
close-up shot too.
yeah,
They found, in fact, I was hiking last Sunday with Henry, and I said, "What was that?" He goes, "That's the owl again." And I
wow.
said, "Really? It's out this early again?" He goes, "Yeah, it was huge too. Did you see it?" And I said, "Yeah, but I didn't think it was an owl. I thought maybe it was an eagle." He goes, "No, that was the owl."
Yeah, they get really, you know, the great horned owls definitely get huge if that's what it happens to be. We have Andy on the line from Connecticut once again. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hi, folks. Just a quick question. Are you aware of the Betty Andreasen case? And just, are you aware of the Betty Andreasen case? And any comments on that? Thank you.
Sure. I'm sorry, the connection not quite too good. The Betty Andreas case, I think he's saying. Are you familiar with that? I mean,
No,
you don't
just
don't
the
really.
Betty and Barney Hill case.
Yeah,
I don't
I mean,
really, I never could watch any of those films. I'm just starting now to be able to watch them because now I'm able to come to terms with it and not be as frightened about it
sure. Yeah,
because I'm able to talk about it. Before I couldn't talk about it.
yeah.
I have people like you, Martin, and people like Tom Reed that I can talk to about it. Before I only had my husband and my sister and my close friends, but now I have other people in the ufology groups that I can talk to about it.
Right, right. Thanks, Andy. And I'm not sure what the issue was. You usually come in clear. Again, it could be the system. Bill's got to do a little tweaking before next week. We'll try this call. Chris from Houston. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi. Sorry, let me mute.
Yeah.
Can't turn it. Hi. I'm fascinated. It's hard to even formulate a question. The interesting, see if you won't mute. I've had experiences very similar to a lot of your experiences. The thing that's very different, and I wonder, have you encountered people either when you were having these experiences as a young child, like at age 4 and 5, or it sounds like you were just terrified the entire time. Everything was terrifying. Everybody was terrified. I wasn't terrified, and I'm fascinated by the difference. I was never terrified. I was told, I went through the same thing of being told not to talk about it and trained denial. Never blocked it. It was never a lost memory or anything, but I just learned not to ever repeat what I experienced or to ask strangers about it. But the experience itself, I was never afraid, ever. Repeated experiences, the levitations, the critters in my room, going to places, seeing military people, like American military. I mean, I was 4 and 5 years old. I didn't really know much, but I had seen people in uniform. I had relatives in the military. But I remember that. I remember grays. I remember seeing, a classic saucer in a hangar. But never once was I terrified or hysterical. I don't understand the difference.
Well, you're braver than I am then. That's all I can say. Good for you.
I'm going to take it off the air because I can't hear you on the phone.
All right. Well, thank you for the call. So, I would imagine that it affects people in different ways that are having these.
Lucky him that he's as brave as that. Good for him.
And okay, but maybe perhaps he got a different message from whatever was happening to him, or maybe he was approached differently, because
I don't
who
know.
knows? Yeah.
Everybody's different. I mean, some people love going on a Ferris wheel. Other people are scared to death of a Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Perfect example. We're all different. People are different. Some people love scuba diving. Other people don't.
Right.
We're all different.
Right. Someone has mentioned a couple of times in the chat room about the Flatwoods monster. No, that's nothing you've probably never heard of. But Frank, trying to remember his last name, who has written books on that. He will be coming up on the show, just to let you know. And so for those of you that haven't heard about that story, it's really another incredible one with quite a few witnesses. Now, I want to ask you this. You live in the area out there, and I'm just wondering, are people still experiencing things in the area? Are you aware of that?
I have a friend that has some fabulous photographs, actually, from Cherry Hill that she took of some UFOs that I think it was maybe 4 years ago that she took these photographs, and people see them all the time around the Cherry Hill area, for sure. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Cherry Hill seems to be a hot spot. That spot right around the Cherry Hill area, there's a swamp down there. That's where Jane Green saw it that night.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people see things over Cherry Hill.
And just, getting back, you mentioned Jane's name. How did, like I mentioned at the top of the show, I only knew this as the Reed family incident. I had no idea there were other people involved. How did that, or do you even know how it came about where Netflix in particular found all these people that this happened to? Did someone in the town connect people together?
Well, Tom told me that he always knew that my brother knew about it and had talked about it. I guess they're the same age.
I see.
See, I'm older than all these guys. I'm much older than the two Toms. And apparently they were all talking about it at school.
So they were talking about it, but you just didn't
They
hear
were,
it.
but I was older than them and I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
See, I'm 4 years older than them. I was leaving school and they were just, they were freshmen. I was a senior and I was in the art department. So I didn't rally with these guys.
Right. And so now you say that you're just beginning to be able to look at this topic a little more. I did want to tell you, this is just my opinion, but it's a much easier time than just a few years ago to be able to come out with something like this. More people are taking it serious. There's more science that is looking into the topic, which I think is wonderful. We have a Harvard professor that was heading the astronomy department. He's going to be on this show talking about a book that he's written that he believes it's very possible that we've been visited by extraterrestrial object in our solar system. I'm going to find out what he thinks about UFOs. I'm reading the book right now. It's really, really good. He's pretty open-minded, and he thinks it's a shame that more people like him are not at least looking into what could be going on. He's not particularly talking about UFOs, but possible extraterrestrial life, which is a great topic. And wouldn't it be like the discovery of the millennium if that could be verified that we actually do have extraterrestrial life visiting us, or that it's out there, even intelligence? If you had to guess, I'm asking you to theorize, would you think that that's what's been going on, or do you just want to throw up your hands and say, I don't know?
I really don't know. I think about it all the time, and want to continue to research this. I'm not going to stop researching this. I'm not going to say I was abducted because I don't know what happened. I honestly don't know what happened. I know something happened to me. I know what I saw. I know that something happened to me. I know that it was a continuous thing. But was it the government? Was it UFOs? Is it paranormal activity because of indigenous peoples? Is it the combination of all three? Which I think it's all three, a combination of all three. So I think we need to research the three, all three. And I don't think we should stop. There's definitely something going on for sure. And I believe it's generational as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little while ago, you mentioned Betty and Barney Hill. So at least you have heard about that.
I have. And the reason why I've heard about it is because I've heard about it from Tom Reed, who's friends with them. He's not with them, but friends with his family.
Yeah.
That's how I know about it.
Kathleen Martin. I'm sure that's who it is. Who's been on the
I
show.
never followed any of this stuff because it was too frightening for me. I just didn't, like I said, if a friend of mine would come down to visit from Vermont who is really into this stuff and she'd watch it with my husband, films and Discovery Channel and all that, and I'd leave the room and go in the other room because it was too scary for me. And she even said to me the other day, she said, you know, I never could figure out why you wouldn't sit in the room and watch it with us. And now I know why. It was too scary for me. She said, I'm really sorry I would put you through that. I didn't know her well enough at the time to tell her, but now she knows.
Right. Yeah. Wow. I can't believe we only have 7 minutes left. So we're going to be closing the phone line fairly soon. If you'd like to make a call, please do that now. And Bill will be standing by. And for those of you over at the radio station, it is 855-472-5483. And so I understand, just by listening to you that you're going to, this is something that you're interested in researching. And if you find an answer to what is going on, if you happen to, do you think it would help you, or do you think it wouldn't make much of a difference?
I think it would help a lot of us, to be honest with you. I think it's fascinating. I love the study of what went on here, the history of the Berkshires. I think is wonderful. It's a wonderful place to live. I feel very fortunate to have grown up here and to live here. I love the people here. It's a beautiful place. And it's historical. It's a historic, whatever happened, it's history. It was history. And I think we need to learn what happened. What happened to us as children here? Something happened to us. And I think we're foolish if we don't look into it and find out. It's our history.
Right. And speaking of history, I realize the town has been, you talk about the indigenous people were there, of course, for probably thousands of years. But I'm wondering if anyone has ever looked deep into the history of the area to see if there's anything that comes up in any type of historical records.
They don't, and not enough. I think that they have, but I think it's been left out too much of the First Nations people in this area, and they need to. I really would like to do that. Like I said, I really would like to contact these people and find out what went on here. Do they have any records of any phenomena that went on, like they do with the Aztec people and the Mayan people?
But even more contemporary times, if you think of like newspaper clippings from, the late 1800s forward, that type of thing. He actually fixed the phone, if anyone wants to call in. And last call on the phone, because we have only 4 minutes left, if you'd like to call in. But I'm glad you fixed it, Bill. That's good timing, buddy. So I want to know, when you want to research, are you like going to get involved in doing some of that work yourself, or are you just going to see what happens as things progress? Because
No, when I'm able to get up to Williamstown where they're located, I
oh,
would
I see.
really
Yes.
like to meet with the woman that's in charge of it. I've been reading about her being located up in Williamstown now, and I would really like to meet with her and ask her some questions. I don't know how I'll be accepted by her, whether she even believes in the phenomena of it, but I would like to talk to her about it and see what she has to say about it, and if there's any records, because I know that field where, like I said, Tom had his incident. It's covered with artifacts in there. So there could be something, it could be a vortex. There could be something that's going on there. And all of Great Barrington, I did read the book about King Philip's War, and that did take place along that river. So there's something that went on. I don't know about Lake Mansfield. I do not know the history of Lake Mansfield, but I have friends that my cousin, her mom used to watch other space ships up at Lake Mansfield for years. Her mom is no longer with us, but she used to watch UFOs up at Lake Mansfield for years. So I'm not the only one, and neither are my parents, that have seen UFOs up at Lake Mansfield. I don't know what the history is of Lake Mansfield. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's see what we got right here. We've just got a couple minutes left. So again, no more time, but someone had tried to ask you a question, and hopefully they'll re-ask it real quickly in caps, because I can't see it. And I think that's probably going to do it for us tonight, though, unless that question happens to pop up. But I want to thank you so much. It's been really, really a pleasure. I hope, you talk about after COVID, I hope I get to meet you, because as the crow flies, we're not really that far away. We're about
No,
3.5
not at all.
hours, 4 hours, something like that. But I love the area out there. I had mentioned to you before that I really enjoyed. I was in Stockton, right where you are, just, I think it was March 10th or 12th, something like that, right when the whole Armageddon of this thing started taking place. Staying at the Von Trapp Lodge in Vermont, and the clerk there said, "You better get out of here, because they're going to close off all states." That was back in like March 12th or something like that. I'm glad that never happened. But I want to thank you so much. Really, it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Well, thank you for having me. And I will send you the photo that I have of my owl that.
Yeah.
That
you know what I'll do? I'll pop that up in the show notes for any of those that would like to see it.
It's funny. I pulled it up today. I was going through photographs, and I pulled it up because I was going to do a painting of it, and I saw it.
Wow.
And it got folded. Wow. I think I've got it on my phone, though. I'm going to go through my photos. I'll send it out to you. Thank you so much, though, for having me.
Thanks a lot, and you take care.
You
Talk
too.
soon.
Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
Good night.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone. Remember, we'll be back next week, as always, and we have Larry Hancock. Should be an interesting show. Thank you all for participating tonight, and remember to keep your eyes to the sky.